I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. If you are passionate about pro wrestling and you're never done learning all about it, this is the place for you. What are you waiting for? Go ahead and join the Till We Make It tribe. Subscribe right now. I get a lot of messages from those of you out there who live outside the United States but are considering moving to the US to explore your options in professional wrestling. You gotta go where the opportunities are. But I've lived in the US my entire life, so moving to the US is not a topic I am exactly well versed in. However, a friend of mine is, because she recently moved from Australia to the United States, and I asked her to share some of the trials and tribulations of making that move with us to give you a real honest insight into what that's like in the here and now. And here, right now, is the one and only Shazza McKenzie.
Shazza, thank you very much for agreeing to do this and for helping everybody out that's watching, because the questions you and I are going to tackle are ones that come up a lot in my community. And you've been living here in the US for just over a year now, right? The year anniversary just passed.
Yes.
For the first, 15 or 16 years of your career, you were based out of Sydney, Australia. So you've literally moved to the other side of the planet for this. What prompted you to move to the US for this next chapter of your wrestling career?
So the decision was made. So obviously there was a pandemic, everything shut down. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that thing. Everything shut down. I got locked in my country for 2 years. And prior to that, I'd been traveling to America at least twice a year, but up to 4 times a year. And I was doing like long stints, like sometimes coming for like 2-3 months at a time, that sort of stuff. So the pandemic happened. And I kind of, I was locked in my house or whatever. And during the pandemic, I was like, well, I guess maybe wrestling's not really what I'm going to do with my life anymore. Maybe I just, at that time I think I was 31. So as a female in this business, that's getting on. And the opportunities that it shouldn't be, but realistically in this business, that's, getting on. So, so the pandemic was happening. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be a wrestler or whatever it is. But then as soon as they opened the border, they said, okay, you can leave the country. I said, okay, I'm going to do one last hurrah, go do a 3-month tour of America. And I'm going to just get it out of my system just to remind myself that I could do it. I was an okay wrestler, and then I'll just pack it up and I'll get on with my life. But obviously I went and I did this 3-month tour of America in from March 22 to June 22. And then I was home maybe a week, and I was like, okay, I need to find a way to move to America. I was like, I can't stay. Not that I can't stay here. I had a good life back home, but I was like, I knew there was more that I could do and needed to do and wanted to do to feel fulfilled and not ever have a career of what ifs, because I hate what ifs. I go for it and I shoot my shot, and if I get told no, at least I know the answer's no. And it's kind of how I've always lived my career and done my life. So I was home for about a week after that tour, and I just started. First person I contacted was Lufisto, because she had at that time recently just gotten a US visa to work in the US. And so I contacted her. I said, info, and she was very helpful. She gave me all her info. Then I found I found another lawyer and everything. And I pretty much just started the process in June. And then I got my visa in March of June 22 is when I started the process with the lawyer. March 23 was when I physically had passport with my visa in it. And
so said, 9 months it took to do that part of the process.
Yeah. It was a long process.
And is it expensive? Is that an expensive process?
Obscenely. Yeah, obscenely. It's disgusting, the amount of money. It's insane amounts of money. But that was basically, I found a really good lawyer, and I was very lucky in that sense. And with the visa that I'm on, my visa is for professional wrestling. So most people that have my visa come over because they have a employment at a major company or whatever. So as an independent wrestler, I had to prove that I was exceptional in my field of professional wrestling and that I had accomplished enough stuff and that I was, going to contribute to the US economy and the US. I was going to help the country with my great professional wrestling.
So how do you prove this to a lawyer?
The lawyers just basically, every newspaper article, every little TV article, every, even the silly, everyone PWI rankings are silly. Those PWI rankings proved that I was in the top 50 female professional wrestlers in the world at one point, apparently. So
I knew that magazine was good for something.
Exactly. So just all that sort of stuff. And especially things like just holding championship belts, which we know in our little world isn't a legitimate thing, but to the government,
to the masterminds in the U.S. government.
I'm great. Yeah, I'm the best female professional wrestler ever because I've got this belt, obviously, and things like that. And just I was very lucky. I had a very good lawyer who was able to put together a package for me and make it sound like I was good enough for this country. And luckily, the government said yes, okay, we will allow you in. Yeah, exactly.
Was there a milestone in this process? You wanted to save up a certain amount of money and then you were like, now it's time to buy the plane ticket and go? Or do you feel like the moment you had the visa in hand, you were like, this is the thing and now I'm gone?
So I actually, with my visa process, so the way they do the visa process is you can wait and it could take 6 to 18 months for them to approve your visa. Lovely US government. Or you can give them an extra couple of grand and they'll do it in 2 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah. It's crazy how that works. So I did have once I'd saved up enough money, because I was originally just waiting it out. And then I knew I had X amount of money and I knew I wanted to be in the country by Mania Week. And I wasn't going to Mania Week last year, but I knew that I knew that that's the hot season, March. I can I knew I could, booking wise, March onwards, I could get it rolling. January and February, it's a bit slower because of the weather and everything like that. And I bought which I knew. So I kind of knew I wanted to be there by March. And so then once I had figured out and gotten enough money that I was like, okay, I can afford my plane ticket. I can afford an Airbnb to live in for the first 3 months because I also don't have a place to live.
Right.
I could afford just all the necessity. I knew I had enough. Once I had enough money that I could afford to live and everything for 3. I was like 3 months is a good breather, and we'll figure it out from there. Because going to America and I could have come here and been like, I'm going to get an apartment off the bat. But what I did was I stayed in an Airbnb while I got my license and my social security and all these other really little annoying things that you have to get in America sorted. And then I was like, okay, now we can figure out where we're going to actually live and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to getting off the plane and being in an empty apartment with no bed and nothing and being like, cool, this is great.
You're living the dream, Shaz.
Yeah, exactly. Dream. So I saved up quite a lot, and then once I knew I had money to get it in 2 weeks, and it was February, and I was like, okay, I did it, and then as soon as they, it was supposed to take 2 weeks. Once I paid that money, it took 2 days. I said, I hate this government. I was like, oh, of course. And then
are you a dual citizen now? Are you both an Australian and a US citizen? How does that work?
No, I'm not a citizen. I am. I have a. Currently, it's a non-immigrant visa. I'm now in the process of getting it, switching it into an immigrant visa. I'm in the process where I have to prove that essentially now that I've actually contributed to the US and everything like that. And then once I get a non-immigrant visa, then I can apply for a green card and then I become a citizen. It's a process. Would have been much easier to just marry an American. Unfortunately, I did not do that.
Well, thank goodness PWI is covering you. That should smooth out this whole process. It's hard to believe you and I first met. It was 12 years ago is when you first came to train at the Wrestle Factory.
Yes.
And you've had a lot of experiences. Like you said, right, there was a time almost quarterly you were here in the US. But the process of like moving and living here, is there one thing you found really challenging about that?
Just the different states, it's just like the governments and like there's different states rules and taxes and healthcare and all like there's all these little things that like the longer I'm here, I'm like, oh, this country really just like hates people. I love America, but they're like, we're going to make every little step of the way as hard as we possibly can.
Right.
Like nothing is going to be easy. Like simply getting my license. I think I ended up at the DMV like 5 times because they were like, oh yeah, you can just do this. And then I go there and then they're like, no, you need another form. And I was like, cool. And then I go there and then they're like, actually, now you need to do a test. I said, okay, cool. With what car? And then they were like, oh, I guess you're going to have to rent a car. And I'm like, okay, I rented a car. Then I rented a car and then I went to do a driving test. And then they were like, oh, your car's not registered. I said, why would they rent me a not registered car? And then I had to go get another car. And then eventually I got my license. And it took like 3 weeks for this thing that I was like, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to give them the money and they're just going to say, here's your license. And then I'm going to be able to go get a car and everything's going to be fine. But no, it was much more complicated than that because of course.
Welcome to the US of A. If someone watching this is thinking about coming to the US because they want to train or they want greater opportunity as a professional wrestler, and you could pass on just one insider tip that might make it a little easier for them, what's that piece of advice?
I think for me, the reason I was able to do what I was able to do to get this visa is because over my time coming here, I was able to make connections with so many people and get so many places. And so I knew that when I did make the leap to live here, I knew that I had a good base of things that I was like companies that were going to book me and places that I was going to be able to wrestle and make a living in. I was going to be okay because I built that. So I think my biggest advice is if you are coming over here, whether it's to train, whether it's to wrestle and build your name, whatever it is, when you are here, to just get in cars and to like, it's the same advice we give young guys over here getting started. It's because it's the networking and getting yourself out there and having more people that can back you up and say nice, not even nice things, but just say that what you're doing is legitimate and like all that sort of stuff. Like that's the stuff that really helped me, is being able to back up saying that I'm a good wrestler and I deserve to be in your country. But I was able to back it up with all these things that people had said about me and written about me and all that sort of stuff. And that was like all that silly networking stuff was really what got me here, as opposed to actually my physical wrestling, right? Like it's people being able to say, hey, yeah, no, she's legitimate, like, and this is what she's doing and that everything's okay.
Right. Yeah. That's great advice. And thanks for making time to like share all of this very frustrating experience of coming to the US with us.
Of course.
I happen to think Shazza is one of the hardest traveling and hardest working people in all of pro wrestling. And I'm really grateful that she carved out time from her very busy schedule to join us here on Till We Make It and talk about her move to the United States. If you'd like to see some of the other interviews I've conducted on topics like merchandise design or how championship belts are made, click on the video appearing on screen right now and you will jump into a playlist of my interview series. And also appearing on screen is a link to my Patreon. I'd love to have you come join our community and take your wrestling education to the next level.